Hi you guys, it's that time. It's February homeschool update time. And I realized I haven't done one of these in a long while. The last one I did was in December because the midterm review kind of took January's spot. And so I thought that I had covered everything. And then I saw a whole bunch of other homeschool moms do a midterm review and a January homeschool update. And honestly, you guys, I got FOMO and I was really worried. And I thought, well, maybe I should do a video. And then by the time I got around to it, it was too late. So I have my notes and I am prepared for a good February homeschool update. And I'd like to start off with some of the lessons that Morgan and I learned together that I really want to make sure that I take with me for the rest of our homeschool life. And that is because they are really meaningful and they have a lot to do with how Morgan and I gel, how we work together, and how she learns, which I think is like just so fun to watch her learn. One of the biggest things for me though is I don't feel like I'm a newbie anymore, and I don't want to say that I'm new, even though we've got 3 more months to the end of this, our first homeschool year. I feel like I have my associate's degree in homeschool mom, and my professor is a 9-year-old girl who has thankfully given me a grade closer to 4.0 than 2.0. I feel like I know what I'm doing, and Morgan is really into school, and I'm watching her grow, and it's just so exciting. So I thought I would start with a few things that I'd like to take as takeaways for me, and that especially if you're a new homeschool mom or thinking about becoming one, maybe these are things that you can have in the back of your mind that I didn't really when I started. With that, the first lesson is I seriously underestimated Morgan, and I am not going to do that anymore. When I set the bar here, she meets it. When I set the bar here, she meets it. So what I've started doing is setting the bar way up here, and maybe she doesn't meet it, but she has sure blown through the first 2 goals that I might have had for her. Now our bar is higher. Her bar is higher for her, and my bar is higher for her. And we've talked about this because one of the things that I had noticed in January was I gave her an option of what to do or how much math to do. And when I asked her first, before suggesting how much math she should do, I asked her, and her answer was more than what I came up with or would have given her. So say I would have said, do 5 pages, and she said 8. We really do have conversations now about her homeschool and the courses that she takes and how much work she does. She ends up doing more work by her own choice than I would have thought for her to do. And that is a huge lesson learned. And then following up with that, I want to cover a huge myth buster. And that is the idea that children can't sit still for very long periods of time or focus for very long. And for Morgan, that is categorically wrong. Even subjects that she doesn't like, she can sit for a really long time and make it worth liking or worth knowing. I've watched her kind of tinker with things that she doesn't really enjoy and then take it apart and make it something she likes. Maybe it's a piece of math. It could be frustrating for her, but then when it's tied into understanding why that's important, it's suddenly very interesting for her. And I've noticed that for science as well. And then that leads me to the third one, where Morgan, and she wanted to at the very beginning too. She always wanted to say, and she wanted to participate because it's just me and her. I just have the one kid that I'm homeschooling. And so it really is a team of 2. But even more so now, she wants to control her homeschool. She wants to control how she learns, what she learns. She's very malleable and open to ideas because as I'm the older person and she's the younger one, we still are both learning quite a lot, but she doesn't know what she doesn't know yet, and I know that better. But she also knows better what she does like. And so we kind of pair those 2 things together and have a discussion. And her opinions count. They really, really count. So those are the 3 takeaways that I have for February of not to underestimate my kid. She can sit for very long periods of time and really focus deeply on a subject, any subject, and that she wants to control her education. And I think those are things that she will be able to take with her into her adulthood. So I'm going to take particular care to grow those things. Oh, there's one fourth one. We will never, ever, ever be the homeschool that finishes at noon. We're just not going to do it. Unless we wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, we can't finish before noon. And I think that if you're a homeschool mom of a first grader or pre-K or kindergartner, stop at noon. We are getting into subjects and topics that require more work, more discussion. And we are not in a hurry. We're not rushing through one to get to the other. And the thing is, I do block scheduling. I don't do time scheduling. So if we have something to do, it doesn't matter if it takes 5 minutes or 2 hours, we're going to do it. Now, I don't push for 2 hours and have burnout or anything like that. But because we're not set to a schedule other than the blocks that we want to have for topics in our day, we will go frequently until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But we have breaks and we have lunch and we don't feel like we're overwhelmed. I think what we have is a very good tempo and the willingness to learn. And between those two things, it simply doesn't matter if we don't finish by noon. It's just not going to happen here. I have props, like really good props, that I've also forgotten to bring with me. So I'm going to pause here and go get them. Okay, I've got my props. So let's talk about math first, because this is really cool. You can, if you've been watching my videos, you know that Morgan had some gaps in math and we moved from Saxon to Math UC. And I didn't know where to start because some of her gaps were in addition. So we started with Alpha. And we did there's 30 lessons in Alpha and 8 pages per lesson. You don't have to, because it's a mastery program, you don't have to do every single page in the lesson. And so to fill in the gaps, she didn't do every page in the lesson. She did every lesson, so at least 1 page per lesson. But you can see there's a ton of book that we didn't need to cover because she already had it. But when I move on to Beta, you can see, here's Beta, and this one is multiple digit addition and subtraction. That's the next one in the series. You can see the gaps that she had. And we did every single lesson, but not every page within the lesson. Now we're in Gamma, and Morgan is she's doing more. So a lot of this is newer to her, or we didn't have our multiplication tables down. So we really are doing, except for an enrichment page here and there, we're doing every single page in this book. And while we're doing every single page, she's moving through it faster, which I find really interesting. Maybe it's because she's getting older. She's getting used to homeschool math, but we are doing 7 to 8 pages a day. So in this essentially a year-long program, we will have finished Gamma in 2 months, and then we'll move on to Delta. So from Delta, I think we'll finish this school year, and if not, we'll finish it in summer school. And then we have no plans to move from Math UC at all. It's just working for us very, very well. And honestly, you guys, if Morgan wants to keep plugging through and keep that pace or tempo, I'm just gonna let her do it. I'm not gonna stop her from doing that math. She really likes the math too. So after math, we have a French update, but I'm only gonna say it's going great. We're loving it. Morgan's speaking French with me and she's manipulating the language. We're making a ton of mistakes, but that's because she's using the language. The more she uses it, the more mistakes she makes, and then she gets better and better and better. We have a tutor now once a week. Morgan has a one-on-one session with a teacher from Alliance Française. And what I think I'll do is, because there are fewer homeschool moms who are really interested in foreign languages at a young age. So I'm going to start separating that out and do my own separate monthly homeschool update for French, and then just keep it really short in the normal monthly update. Reading. Reading, as you know, is one of our 3 core subjects. And an update on this is that Morgan's reading her speed has increased greatly. She's finishing novels, bigger novels. She had Devouring Wolf this last month and she read the whole thing. And now, let's see, she's in the middle of Fever 1793. And I had mentioned before, she likes me to tab her books. So what I've noticed is she's reading the same amount but in a shorter period of time. So I've been secretly timing it, and 20 pages took her quite a while in the beginning, and now 20 pages is not taking her very long at all. So I had a discussion with her about that this week of, do you think we should go to timed reading as opposed to page number reading, and set a timer, or just to see how far we can go for 30 minutes or an hour. I prefer an hour, but we're not Sometimes we're there. Sometimes we do like hours. Morgan's is done as long as 3 hours of reading in one sitting, but that's a little bit rare. But what I'd like to do is show her how much she's capable of reading. And if she likes the subject or she likes the book, she can just keep going. What I want to do is revert to, instead of a literature guide, I want to revert to verbal narration, because the literature guides are slowing us down and it's kind of wrecking the tempo of our reading. I really want to rethink that. I haven't come to an exact conclusion on that yet, but I have taken the literature guides away for a period of time. We're still using them, but I'm doing them verbally because writing takes longer than speaking, obviously. And this isn't a writing class, it's a reading class. And I'm specifically, the reason why my core is reading is because reading is hugely important to me. It's hugely important to this household. I think that reading is the way to unlock so many other things. And so don't get me wrong, ELA is really important, but the way I see it is reading is here, is the comet, and everything else about ELA is the comet trail. And it all comes along, but reading is predominantly what is driving the force here. And so we will revert to verbal narration of the literature guides rather than her writing them down. And we'll do writing in another way. Also with writing, she does journaling in the morning and she writes quite a lot in other subjects. But I see a lot of people wanting to do IEW structure and style very early as 4th grade. We're not going to do that here. I do like IEW structure and style, and I do want to use that as a learning tool, but probably not until the 6th grade. Because I look back at where I was in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, I didn't have structured writing until after the 6th grade. And quite honestly, if you have reading down pat and you have comprehension down and you have all the other things, then learning how to write an essay takes like half a minute later on when you're older. So I don't think that I need to add that yet. But when I do, it will likely be IEW's structure and style. And with reading, now that she's reading more, I want to start focusing on how to read different ways, how to read different books, how to read different genres, annotating, taking Cornell notes. Let's see, what's the other thing I had? Engaging in deeper discussion, when to engage in deeper discussion, how to share one's thoughts. And we all talk about verbal narration, but there's not a lot of detail to that. Here's how we do it. We sit, especially for read alouds, we will stop if Morgan wants to interrupt me in the middle of a chapter and she's got a thought, we will stop and we will really deep dive into that idea, and I'll ask her questions and she'll ask me questions. It kind of brings us to now the idea of teaching Morgan to write her thoughts down on the book or about the book. I want her to write in the book, which is why we don't have a lot of library books around here anymore. We go to the library every week, every other week, and we look at books. But honestly, if there's a book that I really want, I'm going to buy it because I'm going to write in it. And I have written in library books before. I got in trouble for doing that in the 7th grade. But of all the things that I could have done wrong in the 7th grade, I don't think that was a really bad one. Also, what I'm doing is I have joined a book club. It's an adult book club. It covers the classics, and sometimes there's adult theme, things like that. But they allow Morgan to come. And so she can come and sit and listen and participate in not necessarily the discussion, but the listening of the discussion. And I remember growing up listening to my mother and her friends talk in depth about things, about politics and national issues and books. I remember my mother just loving James A. Michener. She read every single one of his books. And so I think that being around adults and listening to that builds the idea that you can do that yourself, and likely at a younger age. And then let's cover a topic I don't actually talk about ever. It's not that we don't do it, it's just that it's been conspicuously missing from my vocabulary in these videos, and that's spelling. We do cover spelling, but not with a particular text, and here's why. When Morgan was in school, she'd come home with word lists, and she'd work really hard to memorize those lists, and she'd get an A. And when she didn't work really hard, she got a D. The problem was that I noticed that after a few weeks, the words that she remembered that she got an A on in school, she didn't remember anymore. And so that A was the equivalent of a D later on. Over time, it made no difference. So I was really hesitant in starting off Morgan in homeschool learning through spelling lists. It just doesn't work for her. And so I've been evaluating her and paying attention to how she learns. And something that I noticed was when she wants to know a word, she knows it immediately. And in fact, it shoots right past her short-term memory, past her midterm memory, and gets stuck permanently into her long-term memory. And she never has to ask for that word spelling again. That's important to know. I think that if Morgan wants to learn how to spell a word, she will learn how to spell a word. And her spelling has gotten better, and because of that, I'm not concerned about it. But one thing that I did was I went ahead and I bought Explode the Code. I also bought word roots, but that's not going to work. That literally is what it says. It's learning how words are separated and combined and the roots of words and where they come from. And that's not spelling. That just isn't going to help Morgan. So I got Explode the Code, and when it arrived, I had it on my desk. I'm actually sitting at my husband's desk. We have a his and hers office, and the light is better here. So that's my desk. And I had Explode the Code over there, and Morgan walked in and she said, what's this? And I told her what it was, and she said, that's interesting, and walked away. Well, later on that night, I hadn't opened it to read it yet, and I sat down, and I went to look for the book, and it wasn't there. So I got up, and I looked around, and I found it, and it was in her morning routine bucket. And in the morning, she was doing her spelling. And she's been doing 2 pages a day on her own without any help and not being asked. So I haven't said anything at all. So maybe it'll stick. I don't know. But that's now part of her morning routine, along with our big long walk in the morning. She does journaling, her 1 sentence a day, poetry, fix-it grammar, and now 2 pages at least of Explode the Code. So that's going really well. I like that. Now our unit studies, what we did so far, and I think we're kind of done with unit studies except for American history. We'll start doing that the whole month of April. We'll cover American history, and I already did a video on that. But we finished both of the Good and the Beautiful's geology and health. She liked both a lot. We liked both a lot. The health program, though, she really, really liked. And because of this, I've been thinking about doing a much longer unit study next year in the 5th grade, covering physiology, sociology, with a smaller unit study in sexual education, which is around the time that you get a little bit of that in the 5th grade anyway in public school. Where we don't do science, that's when we do our history program, The Story of the World. And we really like that and we miss it, so we're just going to stop doing unit studies on other stuff and continue to finish The Story of the World Volume 1 this year. And an update for me, one thing that I've noticed that I am not using is, let's see, I have it right here. I really like my lesson planner, and a lot of you guys use this from the School Nest. And this is the minimal version, or the minimalist version. Even this I use very little of. I don't ever use the month pages, and I never use in between, let me see, in between the weeks. So here's a week. And then in between every one of those is a weekly overview and weekly goals and notes and schedule, and it's just too much. I don't use it, and it seems like a waste. So I looked and looked and looked and looked and looked. There isn't one. It doesn't exist. So I made my own. What I've done is I've taken all of the good things from everybody else's planners and I designed my own. It took me forever though. I actually wonder how these ladies do it. I'm totally impressed with them. I've got her 5th grade, or our 5th grade planner, and Morgan liked it so much I think she wants one, and so now I have to figure out how to make her one, or a smaller one, because they are different. I mean, she doesn't need an attendance sheet in hers. But one thing that I've added is our travel checklist for world school planning. So I've got world school planning for, how we're going to go and our route. And then I've got Morgan's travel checklist, my travel checklist, and what else? Yeah, mostly world school planning. Also, what was missing from pretty much every other homeschool planner was a unit studies curriculum progress, because most of the curriculum progress was too much, and I do shorter unit studies, and so I just put it up here. So for instance, if we did the Good and the Beautiful's geology, it'd just be geology here, and there's only 14 lessons, and so you just check that off, and then the next unit study and the next unit study. So I'm not wasting a whole bunch of space, and it's just not being used. So I don't know how you guys do it, but I just found that I really like to have my planner work for me, as we all do. And there's so much about everybody else's planners that don't work for me that I just decided to sit down over a weekend and do one myself. Another new thing is that Morgan and I have joined a chess club. There is a chess master, the North Dakota chess master, and he has a chess club that we're going to start going to. I think I had mentioned plays as well, so Morgan and I are going to go to our first play in March, so that's new. On my list of things to do this next week, or the first week of March, is to find a state testing or purchase a state testing packet that Morgan's going to take. She wants to do state testing. She wants to see how she's doing. She wants the experience of taking a test. And so I think it's good practice. She'll be able to do that. And what I'd like to do is schedule it for maybe the second to last week of school and just get it done. And that'll be the only thing we do that week. So it'll just be pretty relaxing for her, actually. And this coming month, I have 2 speaking engagements on gardening and small-scale farming. So I will be giving those talks in different counties. And they're quite far away, so I will pack up Morgan and she'll come with me. And that will be part of our North Dakota unit study because we're required to talk about agriculture. And that day or those 2 days where I will be speaking, she can stay with me and she can watch some of the other speakers. And I think that would be great for her because she does love to grow stuff. And I think that why not? Every time she comes to these, I spoke at Grand Forks Gardening Saturday a couple of years ago. And she sat quietly in the back and watched, and she sat in on other people's conversations and listened to other speakers. I just think that's really fun. So that gets her energized to go outside and grow more stuff in the summer as well. Finally, I think my next video will be on 5th grade curricula and schedule because I'm rethinking literature and I want to do a literature theme. I see literature-based curricula, but it's never the right thing for me. We're all picky, but I like to pick and choose things for myself. For some reason, it just doesn't work if I buy an all-encompassing program. So there's some themes that I'm thinking of. For instance, if I did a seafaring theme for literature, then I could cover nonfiction, fiction, classics, poetry, plays, short stories, and articles. And I just don't see an all-encompassing program that covers all of those things. An article might be, there's the lady who wrote about her relationship with an octopus, and Cy Montgomery, and the book is based or started after her article that was published in Orion by Orion Publishing or Orion Magazine. And that one is titled Deep Intellect. So I want to start talking to Morgan about reading articles as well. And that is something that is missing from education that I see all around, is teaching children to look for articles and look for studies. At least, maybe it's done in high school, but quite frankly, you guys, I'm not really teaching Morgan. I don't think about her as being in elementary and then moving on to middle school and then moving on to high school and then college or beyond or whatever. I see myself teaching a future adult. I don't care about middle school. I don't care about high school. I don't care about college. Those are just blips on the map. I am looking above and beyond all of that. She will, if she has the love of knowledge and she knows how to look for things and she continues to study, I don't tell her she can, you can be whatever you want. We don't do blue ribbons here either. You don't get to be whatever you want. You get to be what you choose to be, and you choose based off of what you can do. And you can do more the more you study, the more you read, the more you do math. And then the sky's the limit. With that, I'm thinking about themes in literature and bringing in greater topics. Why are we not reading Moby Dick in the 5th grade? Why not read poetry, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner? That'd be a great for seafaring theme. Let's see, what else would there be? Sea Wolf by Jack London, The Cane Mutiny, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We can do all of those things, but they don't necessarily have to be children's books. And quite frankly, also, they don't have to be American literature. I see a lot of American literature and then maybe a few British books, but where's the Russian literature? Where's African literature? Where's Arabic literature? Where's Latin American literature? So I really want to do a more world-based theme with what we read. I really do not want a myopic view of how we read and write. It needs to be a global idea because the world is getting nothing but smaller. And that's kind of how I teach it, and that's how I see it. So that's a wrap up for February. I guess that was a lot. I hope that wasn't too much, or I hope it was of interest to you guys. Let me know what you're thinking and how you're doing your homeschool and what you're up to. I appreciate your comments and any kind of ideas that you have. I love listening to them or reading about them. Thank you so much, and wherever you are, whoever you are, happy homeschooling.